During the course of the story, the protagonist will be Andrew, a Japanese-style writer and author who owns a studio where he and his team write new stories for their audience. Shown here are some of the characters Andrew has come up with, all from the most twisted and superstitious legends, myths and stories. A bloodthirsty vampire, a nocturnal warrior who appears only under the pale light of the moon, stealing powers through the blood of his victim, whose favorite delicacy is blood. An insatiable succubus devil who sucks the soul and strength out of the most perverted souls of people who can only die under the yoke of such a beauty. The so-called demon kings, a real horror in the fantasy world of the protagonist, able to lead the victim to the guardian of the scales, where the heart of a mortal will lie in the left bowl, and a feather in the right. A small dwarf, agile, fast and deadly, like an imp, a demon, laughing at his future victim, whose death will be inevitable. A giant woodcutter, from the side looks like a big and kind man. Get to know him better and you will know all the horrors of this world, all the pain that he brought to his enemies. Once a dead man, now a walking corpse, bound in chains, because you can never expect what can happen to your body after death. A child and already a devil in the flesh, whose skeleton and bones shine through the whole body, and the power given to him from above, stained his hands with blood, and his soul with mud. Our hero's team gathered in their office. Probably a very significant event happened. Andrew's team is apparently recording the last address to the audience, and he, sitting in a wheelchair near IVs and medical equipment, hardly voices his address. From the last strength, Andrew says words of gratitude to his fate for the fact that she rewarded him with a short life full of his favorite work. The end of the recording, like a consequence of death, a black screen, a curtain. Andrew's game on the stage of life ended very early. Whether it was an intermission at the most inconvenient moment, drugs, equipment, and medical technology kept the body of the eponymous author, a writer of stories that captured the interest of the public, alive. The hero once wrote about death and murder, but now she overtook him in a black hood, closed the curtain at the most unexpected time for him. A drop of water, like another soul that has fallen into an endless ocean of souls, a kind of peace after death, a white light at the end of the tunnel and, in general, the end of another tiny life. Suddenly, the intermission between scenes turned out to be not the end of the hero's game, but a pause, a change of scene. He began the game in his new role, in another game. A cute maid wipes the once terminally ill author, now a character in another life. Andrew's mind began to clear. His oblivion did not last long. A spark in his soul begins to flare up. The maid carefully wipes apparently her master, and does not expect anything bad from him. Andrew began to toss and turn in bed and make small movements in order to wake up. The protagonist hardly lifts his heavy eyelids. As if after a long sleep, the eyelids stick to one another. The maid did not expect the awakening of her master. She was very alarmed by his unexpectedness. Andrew woke up, after not lifting a dream, from which he would not get out, even the kiss of a loving prince. The maid is still in shock at Andrew's suddenness, as many of you must have been waiting a lot for him to wake up. The girl spilled a basin of water in surprise. The water splashed all over the floor. Mr. Andrew's room. Andrew is already trying to get up in his quarters, not knowing where he is, and the girl falls in front of him. The chambers of our hero look very rich. They obviously waited for him for a very long time, and took care of him just as long. Andrew wonders why he is here. He died a minute ago, as he was transferred to the bed, where he was wiped by a maid. The girl, screaming and roaring, runs out of the chambers in order to notify everyone of the master's awakening. Andrew stretches out his hand in her direction and tries to stop her. Apparently everything is pointless. The beauty runs away, as if the trail has disappeared. The wind has blown it away. It has fallen through the ground. The hero sets his foot on a new land, in his new life, on a new day, everything from scratch. He still feels weak, as well as the fact that his new body is quite weakened during the entire sleep. Andrew finally realized that up to this point he had already died and was probably reborn. Only it was not known where he was and at what time. Andrew notices some clothes and thinks they might be his. A new body, new clothes, everything for our hero in this world will be new. Everything is not the same as usual. The body is so weak that it has difficulty holding on to all these clothes, but it is many times stronger than the former, more weakened. Someone swept through the corridors with a whistle and ran to the main character, whether it was, most of all, waiting for him. The stranger abruptly opens the door to the chambers and calls Andrew master. All this he could not expect from these places. Andrew's jaw dropped in bewilderment, as if he saw someone he knew he hadn't seen in years. The stranger turned out to be one of the heroines of the works of our author, the beautiful devil May, the killer of lustful perverts, yet beauty requires sacrifice. Perfect on the outside and terrible on the inside, everything a female killer needs, ruthlessness towards her victims, perfect appearance and shape, works like a mousetrap with cheese, where even the cheese will be poisoned. Mai swoops down on Andrew with a hug and tells with childlike joy how long she has been waiting for him, and how glad she is for him. The gentleman was very embarrassed that he was embraced by such a beauty, also the heroine of his work. Mai pressed him to her massive chest with an iron grip, and Andrew can only stand and be embarrassed in response to her. Once upon a time, the writer grabs the hand of the devil, and tries to take it off his shoulder as soon as possible. Andrew was left speechless by the events that took place within a few minutes of living in the new world. Mai asked for forgiveness for his impudence and lack of etiquette, due to a long separation. Mai knelt down, calling Andrew her lord, something he certainly didn't expect from a demon queen. Andrew is shocked by the fact that the heroine of his work kneels before him, calling him master. The she-devil has finally risen from her knees, and is trembling a bit after an unexpected meeting, and the writer looks away from embarrassment. The heroine decides to lead and show her master to others. Probably the rest of the heroes of his works are others. The courtyard of the guest house looks very old, like a visit to a grandmother in an old Japanese village. Fresh air, summer heat, and a gentle breeze that tickles the face and blows the hair. Mai gives a small excursion to his master after a long sleep, which apparently plunged all the residents of this house into an abyss of despair due to the loss of the owner for an indefinite period. Someone picks up a glass, crystal clear as a baby's tear, and picks up red wine like blood into it. Mai and Andrew pass by the unknown, who noticed an ardent lover of an intoxicating potion, which in large quantities can become oblivion for a connoisseur. Another hero turned out to be a wine lover, the vampire Alex, the heir of vampires and the bloodthirsty devil, to whom Mai led Andrew. From surprise, the pupils of Mr. Andrew narrowed to the smallest size, and such emotions are caused by a meeting with someone whom he saw only on the pages. An elegant, handsome and immortal vampire who drank a lot of the blood of his victims, and squeezed out of them all the strength and soul. Once a vampire, now a sommelier pours wine into glasses and drinks it by barrel, a real connoisseur. Andrew, as if struck by lightning, let the current flow through the veins. He can only stand with his mouth open and stare at his creation. Mai noticed this impudence in the disrespect of the master. She does not like the fact that some vampire is pretending to be Dracula. Alex further shows his dissatisfaction and his characteristic character, which still needs to get used to. The vampire nevertheless decides to step towards his creator in his patent leather shoes, tapping his heel on the wooden floor. Alex puts his hand to his heart and pays respect to a very expected guest. The vampire, silently, stands in discontent, watching the backs of our heroes. Mai asks not to pay attention to the bad temper of our vampire, who is always in a bad mood. Finally, the author understands that whether it is in a fairy tale with his own heroes or in a lucid dream, where he is the ruler, the main character, the delight of our hero has no end. At every step new impressions and emotions await him, which he never felt on himself in his past life. Someone would soon wake the hero from this dream, because time after time he sees in front of him those whom he could only see on the plain. The agile dwarf Ed greets his master. Respect is characteristic of him, since he may still be a child and all his emotions are sincere. In appearance, the kind woodcutter Borov, another devil in the flesh, the one who should sow chaos and devastation, is engaged in household chores and routine. Andrew understands that he did not come into this world alone, but with him all the heroes of his works, all the horrors of his subconscious, the images of his fantasy came here. Another hero came to the roar and screams by clothes, which can be understood that he is familiar to us as the blind man Charles Ray. The retina of the eyes will soon burn out from constant meetings. It will soon burn through, as from the constant gaze of the sun. The living dead Jack, who seemed to have passed the circle of life, but death let him go to the pages of horror films, also decided to show himself. Ray also put his hand to his chest and greeted the new guest. Everything in the collection, like 7 sins, 7 bad human qualities, complete opposites of everything good in people, the other side of the coin. The demon kings, the woodcutter Borov and the dwarf Ed, who sits like the very bird that cleans the rhinoceros, thereby feeds on dirt and receives protection in return for his help. All demon kings are killers without exception and every person's nightmare, which sows fear in everyone's soul and puts out the fire in a person's heart. And they all call the protagonist master. What an unheard of power is in the hands of one person. A new day has come, the second day of life in the new world of our hero. He is met by beautiful sunlight. Andrew constantly feels out of place just from the mere thought that devils, the dead and succubi live a couple of steps away from him, that they have taken many lives in their lives. All the horror heroes are sitting at the same table. Only this can already make appetite and common sense disappear for a long time. Andrew throws a sharp sideways glance again and again with empty pupils. Mai raises the bowl and toasts the return of their master. Everyone grabs bottles and cups of an unknown drink, supporting the toast with a kind smile. Now everyone at the dinner table has someone to follow. If the leader of the demon kings, the general, the commander-in-chief, the one who stands at the helm. Even a dead man raises a bottle and drinks a toast. And a vampire raises a glass of wine, bringing it to his mouth. Andrew realizes how useless he is and has no idea why they played the roles of his servants. The sudden question of their lord shocked all the demon kings, as if they had poured salt on the wound, pressed on the living. Someone put a cup of drink on the surface, giving a sign that the question was out of place. From the moment all the heroes got into this world, including the writer, their creator, everyone was in the same oblivion. All the demon kings who could make a bloody mess in the middle of the day became ordinary people, and this put a lot of pressure on them morally. Andrew was also shocked by all the information. All the fictional characters, with the power of the devil kings, became one level of a person. He finally realized what a burden he was for them. The writer is tormented by one and the same question: why do they call him their master to this day and after? Question after question. Now the hero needs to find out where his true work is. The demonic pill, the child with the soul of the devil. Nobody has ever seen such eyes in Mai. She has not yet departed from the first question. Mai asked to wait and quickly went for his latest work, and probably the most important for him. Andrew follows his character with his eyes, still not understanding why everyone around is playing the role of his servant. The hero would be just happy if his creation from beginning to end was in this world, which he thought through alone from scratch. The she-devil carries a mysterious box, pressing it to the base of her stomach. Mai indicates that the demonic pill is in this wooden box. Due to the absence of a physical shell, the pill did not need any food or anything at all. So as not to become a burden, he sealed himself in this blue stone. The stone harbored an eerie demon king, capable of laying the heads of hundreds of his opponents on the floor. Beautiful views of the inn, which is poured with light from the shining sun. The writer is trying to talk to the stone, as if he is expecting at least some kind of answer from his interlocutor. Andrew is at a loss as to why he has already awakened, and the pill, sealed, is still sitting in the box. In response to his meaningless conversations, he received silence. How useless our mortal is, these are the thoughts that never leave Andrew's head, and the demon kings should not crawl at his feet. He has enough of the ostentatious Mai and Charles, who pose as servants to the point of exhaustion. There was a roar in another room. Someone offers to go to our Mai, so that she bandages his wound. The culprit of the incident was probably our lover of drinking sweet red wine, and he also broke the cup with sweet nectar. The woodcutter insists that the vampire finally go to Mai. Since he does not have the former regenerating powers, he is mortal. Alex considers this wound a trifle and everything will heal by itself, since he is a vampire. A bloodthirsty vampire cleans up pieces of glass and spilled wine behind him. Who would have thought that a descendant of vampires would be engaged in a household routine? Alex tells the woodcutter that it will take him 3 days to regain his former strength. Burrowy with a kind smile offers to take the wine that the sommelier did not bring to the living room. The woodcutter leaves the vampire alone in the wine pantry, taking the cup of wine with him. From the side, Alex hears a familiar voice, which apparently asks for attention. The vampire glances in the direction where the sound came from and recognizes his master from behind. Andrew asks to keep him company in the dialogue, to talk about something. Mr. Andrew offers to sit down, showing confidence in Alex, to which he responds with impudence, saying that the chair is dirty. During the dialogue, Andrew asks questions about this world and its secrets, for which he receives nothing, since Alex does not know and he is only interested in winemaking. A countless number of questions from our hero is already commonplace, and has become the norm for every resident of the inn. Andrew scratches the back of his head and doesn't fully understand how demon kings are, knowing that the first thing to do in the new world is to do some reconnaissance, not winemaking. Alex is trying to throw the blame on his master, since he was unconscious for half a year, and intelligence was also not very mandatory. The writer noticed how his subordinate is trying to throw the blame on him, and it annoys him. Andrew warns that his master should not be afraid of him and all the demon kings at all. Such warnings can only shock you, as if your life is under constant threat. Each word of Alex will plunge our hero into shock, from which he cannot get out from the moment he enters this world. Revealing all the cards, the vampire says that all the devil kings despise Andrew, but they will not leave him, since he is their master, creator and master in all his glory. They all didn't leave him while he was unconscious, and it's a guarantee that they won't leave him for sure when he finally wakes up after a long time. The grimace of shock did not subside from the hero, since the words of the vampire constantly make you only worry more and more, although this is typical, since Andrew came to everything ready, as if he had rewound the film in the middle. The writer did not leave the stories of his heroes behind and over again did not invent new ones, but continued their stories and even built full-fledged personalities out of them. Alex leaves and after says that the blind Charles knows much more about this world. Andrew can only watch and listen to his subordinate. Alex silently walks away, stepping on the flagstones of the inn. Andrew continued to sit still, drilling a hole in Alex's back with his gaze. After a meaningless dialogue, silence covered the entire street with its veil, creating an uncomfortable atmosphere. Our writer is pressured by the fact that his heroes of works despise him, but do not leave him, because they know that he is their creator. Andrew looks up and thanks someone for this opportunity to lead the demon kings themselves. Alex's eyes are full of displeasure at the uselessness of their master, and the fact that he is such a burden. Something sharply alarmed the vampire. He looked down. It is also unknown what could so shock the descendant of vampires. Opening his mouth wide, Alex glanced at his previously wounded hand, as if his former strength had returned to him. The wounded hand healed in the blink of an eye, as if there had never been a wound before that moment. Nomad gives a lecture like a real professor, passing on his experience and knowledge to his students. The gnome with great enthusiasm continues to tell his most extraordinary stories. Everyone in the audience can only scoff at stories about the strongest warrior. Andrew, with his hand to his face, listens with a complete lack of interest to the stories of Ed, whose stories not only do not like his master. The writer cannot believe that the same dwarf Ed, who loves to cut piece by piece, is now serving as an ordinary storyteller, and as soon as comic book readers see this, the audience will narrow significantly. The catchy look of our hero instantly jumps to something more interesting than stories about the strongest warrior who was a friend of our dwarf. Even in this world, the succubus might open brothels in which certain gentlemen from various ranks ordered fallen beauties for themselves for the night, for various pleasures. This brothel apparently turned out to be the most neglected because of the clients that drop in here. Here, too, a big and probably important gentleman visited this place and took another beauty to his company. The hero has thoughts about the strangeness of this world, whether it is really ordinary or whether everything in this world is in no way similar to reality, whether it is all an illusion. But many things of this world are inherent in the first world of the protagonist, the traditional style, qualities and habits of people. All this seems to indicate that reality has not changed in any way. All the people that the blind Ray met during all this time were quite ordinary, and did not stand out in any way. But still, Charles did not see something, and unusual animals pass through the alleys. The smoke rises, and Andrew notices a strange horse that even in the deepest places of his fantasy he could not invent. The blind man points out his blindness, due to which he did not notice such changes, with the idea of sending a blind man to scout, the best idea for demon kings. The pale light of the moon covers every corner of the streets, makes it possible to see at least something in the pitch darkness, and, on the whole, is very beautiful, if you look into its smallest details. Everyone gathered to discuss the next steps and the upcoming task. Mai indicates that all the demon kings are finally assembled and negotiations can begin. The Lord learned everything about this world from a blind man, and asked his demon kings for their opinion while looking at the stone that sealed another demon king. The most important thing for everyone is where the master will lead them, and what will be his next step. After opening the inn, everyone waited a very long time for their master's decision on the name. Alex stands the furthest as he is the first to awaken his vampire powers, possibly due to the fact that he was able to gain the trust of his master. A sign with the name of the influence at the entrance, and May offers his own options for names. Andrew gave a similar analogy with its names: to sit in anticipation of death, or to take fate and manage it. There is no other way. Everyone has gone through death to get to this point, and of course everyone would rather choose the second option. Mai asks to think again about the last decision: can live a quiet life without death. Andrew, without taking his eyes off the stone, decides that it is not worth spending his second life doing household chores. The hero loved his work on scary horror films, loved everything scary, and will achieve heights in this and in this world. He regrets that he could only feel this atmosphere through drawing, but here he will touch the most frightening creatures and will not miss this opportunity. In this world, our hero has nothing but his demon kings. Woodcutter Borov, a kind-hearted man, clenches his fists and smiles sweetly at the words of his creator. Dwarf Ed was also encouraged by Andrew's words and licked his lips greedily. To live every day in this world, as if the most perverted dream, for the writer, for the author of the most frightening horror films, and just a lover of nightmares. And for an object of art, a dream can only be a meeting with its author, creator. It is better to rush towards danger, adventure, and new discoveries. The only way Andrew sees himself in the future. Even if the end is his death, it is better to die after so many adventures than to live while all the fun is brought to you on a silver platter. Since the choice lies on the shoulders of the protagonist, he will choose what he will definitely not regret in the future: to change the world with his presence. The blind man finally understood and decided to proceed with the story of the further plan. Charles tells Ed to head to the county government, and quickly. Borov is destined to find the caravan, infiltrate it, and find out if there is a suitable place for them. The daughter of the head of the city guard has problems with infertility, and our blind man sent her slanderous water. May and Andrew are hosting a guest at the inn, where our she-devil will be a tasty morsel for the guest. The master is shocked at how well the blind man thought out their plan just by observing his surroundings. Ray tells the dead man and the vampire to make sure everything goes according to plan, and Mai must leave the first bite to her partner. Jack, arms folded at chest level, listens to orders from the blind man. May decides to receive guests, and, as if organizing a competition, the one who gives the most will receive. What he will receive is unknown. Andrew realizes that all the demons have become more submissive over time, but it's still just an image. The beauty decided to incite our vampire with her sharp jokes. Alex reacts to May's harmfulness, as if he doesn't care about her words, and hangs like a bat. Nevertheless, he decides to respond to her insolence with the same insolence. As you know, minus by minus gives a plus. Alex clasps his hand with all his new strength, preparing to execute the plan. Most have already fulfilled their part of the plan. Only the blind man has not yet returned from the head of the city guard. Alex sharpens his claws on his blade, which are already sharp as knives, can dig into his neck, as his fangs and scarlet blood will splash in all directions. Andrew tries to help and asks a question on the subject, to which Alex replies that he has already helped enough, as if, without getting in the way, he helps in any way he can. Mr. Andrew noticed the hidden meaning in Alex's vocabulary, and he did not like it very much. Alex warns that the auction has already ended, but the problem is that someone has paid too high a price. Our guest will be some son of the head of an influential clan, who made a fuss in the city, and no one dared even reproach this scoundrel for anything, and also his bodyguard. Even so, our hero is not worried about any of this, only that he placed the highest bid, thereby winning, as in an auction. The stronger the guard, the more valuable the victim, the more Mai has already been paid, and she will not have to deal with obscenities with this son of the head. Alex seems to have an idea how Andrew can help them carry out the plan. Andrew was tensed by the fact that an unexpected job appeared for him so abruptly. On the landing, Andrew meets the zombie Jack, who is also preparing for the task. The gentleman slowly, step by step, he probably did not get the most important part of the task. Jack suspects that Alex sent him here, and Andrew points out that his actions are on his initiative, even if everything is written on his face. Andrew takes the blame for the broken cup of wine, and he must make amends himself, realizing that even zombies consider him a burden. Jack asks not to overdo the tasks and save your strength, as the main task is already on the nose. The dead man walks the steps with his purple feet, like a ripe plum, with cracked skin, like sand in the most arid desert. Jack initially looks caring, but here he is very worried for the safety of his master. But then he goes up the stairs. The rider looks after his subordinate, and holds a cup of wine with a face full of incomprehension. Then it dawned on him that Jack did not despise him now, but showed concern, or that he was very naive. From the room of our guests, the voices of Maya and her new master, who won in a certain auction, where the main prize was a night with the most important beauty of the inn, are heard. Alex continues to sharpen his claws, keeping Maya and the success of their plan, since it is they who are responsible. Sharpening his nails, Alex abruptly removes the blade from his hands, representing the end of his actions. The blade soars up, as if it is preparing to make a hole in itself, but with renewed vigor. Even a treacherous knife in the back is no more painful than a taunt. The most unexpected thing for a vampire is to cripple himself in order to test his strength again. Dark venous blood gushed like a fountain from our vampire's hand, as if such blows were like pampering for him. Alex's eyes light up blue, and he licks the blood from his palm like the bloodthirsty vampire. Beauty Maya is so beautiful that one look from her makes the blood boil, and the heart beats hundreds of times faster. And the reason for all this is the beauty ideals of the protagonist, since it was he who reflected in her his most desired standards of beauty in girls. And the master's face was covered with a red blush, as he encountered an unearthly beauty that he could only see in dreams and dreams. Only such victims, completely perverted, are chosen by a succubus. May is so hot that the room is covered with steam, and the heart is boiled in the boiled blood of our guest. Mai grabs her lace stockings, emphasizing every contour of her perfect body, which makes even the most important and stubborn guest indifferent, awakens all animal instincts in him. The devil succubus and the goddess of beauty converge as much as they differ, different sides of the coin, the devil and the goddess, although beautiful as the moon and the sun, red face, dripping saliva and heavy breathing, the sun of the head in anticipation of further actions, like a small child looks at another sweet. She is as beautiful as the purest sapphire, magnificent eyes, in which hidden intent is not visible, the strongest weapon of a woman against a naive man, plunges into oblivion, intoxicates, enchants. In the midst of steam and wet thoughts, May decides to approach his new one, who seems to have been hit in the throat by a lump and is silent literally all the time. The whole life flashed before an important sun, he seemed to have forgotten all the worst that happened in his life. That's how strong female beauty is, which can enslave all perverted hearts. Mai hangs on his neck and gives his naive mind that he is completely safe, that he and she are completely alone. The she-devil knows how to play for time and offers to kindle a fire in the pervert's head by trying on new stockings. She whispers in his ear for a long time and smothers him with her hot air, caressing his ears, which have been trembling since the moment he entered the box. While doing a doll look, Mai wants to get an opinion on the next fitting. The heroine changes clothes in front of him, and after each time his eyes swim, as if under the strongest psychological stimulants. Screams can be heard even outside the room, and his bodyguard is on the other side of the door, waiting for the end of entertainment from his master. The guard is furious that this master of his is from a noble family, but he acts like a child who has been given sweets. The dead man and Andrew came with wine to their guests. The dead man politely greeted the bodyguard and pointed to the wine. The guard showed discipline, did not go on about and refused wine. He may not drink, but also does not lose his vigilance. Jack looked sideways at the bodyguard and said that it was not discussed, and this was a gift from his master, and he could not refuse. The guard continues to distrust his interlocutors, keeps his eyes open and puts his blade closer to himself in order to protect himself and his master, who is engaged in all sorts of nonsense. Suddenly, he throws a sharp look. He suspected something. It could scare the guard, but he maintains a clear mindset. The look that fell on our hero was also puzzling. An awkward sensation appeared in his mind, as if ice had been swiped across his skin. Nevertheless, the bodyguard gives permission to enter, offering to go to the box. Andrew is afraid of him, shaking with every movement, like the most insecure warrior. Silence filled the room again. Andrew passes in front of the guard. Awkwardness subsided a little, but the trembling did not leave rest. It is written on his face that he is up to something. Andrew is shaking, afraid of not going according to plan, sweating excessively, which betrays him time after time. Transferred again to the bed with our goddess of beauty, who flaunts her ideal forms, intoxicating the mind of the stupid son of a certain head of the clan, like the sweetest oblivion that is poured into glasses in bars and clubs. Intoxicated with a beauty that can truly leave even the most inveterate hater of women without brains, a beauty that can conquer the world, conquer the hearts of every man. Slowly taking off her stockings, Mai asked not to rush into actions in order to prolong the pleasure. She gently wrapped her stockings around her master's neck, as if tying him to her, giving him the opportunity to think that there was no self-interest in her actions. Mai raises his submissive gaze, but pulls the fool closer to him a little, like the most dodgy snake that wants to strangle its victim. Mai impressed him well that he was in complete love, care and affection, that nothing but an unforgettable night awaited him, that he was completely safe, under the protection of Lady Mai. The soft look of the beauty has become sharper and more explosive, which means that the task is coming to an end. The same fiery look appeared on Andrew, who is just about to bring a bowl of wine into the box or take the bodyguard by surprise. The cup of wine shoots up, a surprise attack on the guard that he never expected from an insecure man. The bodyguard only has time to react to a sudden blow from the side and silently awaits his fate. The cup broke into fragments. The wine covered the entire face of the guard and narrowed his horizons, flooding his eyes with its sweetness. Stockings tighten the neck of a stupid pervert who can only trust every beauty who is beautiful on the outside, but give her the opportunity to come closer, and you will see the most unobvious thorns. The desire to kill is red in Mai's eyes. Her hand strongly squeezed the stockings, which squeezed the fool's neck. The pervert's eyes are full of pain. His face makes the most disgusting grimaces. And yet only recently he was drooling over our beautiful Mai. Something incredibly strong flies in from the front doors, which can also kill everyone in this room. Vampire Alex decided to demonstrate his strength, to show all his power, which he promised to return to himself as soon as possible. The bloodsucker grabs some kind of trinket, as it is sharp, and he probably wants to attack the stupid son of the head of the clan. The eyes of the devil, darker than the night, when he is calm, and shine like the full moon, personifying the death of his opponent. The face of pain, fear and despair does not leave the pervert, and screams reach the farthest corners of the inn. The body of an important son falls to the ground, a body that has undergone mind smoke torture with the help of animal instincts. Alex looks at the pervert with his head up. The task is completed, the victim is caught, only his guard remains. The body, devoid of reason, lies on the floor, foam flows from the mouth, reddened eyes from inflated capillaries. Everything is depicted on the face, his fear and pain, happiness before the attack. Mai and Alex's case is over, the rest is up to Andrew and Jack. The Devil Queen continues to sit, waiting for further action. The little son lies at Alex's feet, his blood spread on the floor. He no longer has hopes for a night full of happiness. Mai worries that Alex might have killed him, and he's such an important person and quite a rare fish that they were baited. The vampire claims that he did not seriously hurt him and the pervert is still alive. The guard, suddenly, jumped up to his master in order to help. But it was too late. You need to help yourself. He cannot open his eyes, because the wine stings them, and the sweetness of the drink blinds the eyelids. The bodyguard's sword is covered with an unknown energy, which is rather strange for an ordinary sword, and yet the guard is clearly not weak and is preparing a strong attack for our hero. He rushed towards Andrew, preparing to cut him into 2 equal parts. Andrew can only open his mouth wide, defending himself with his hands against his enemy's lightning attack. Hand chapped from dryness, purple skin, the dead man prepares to defend his creator from a deadly attack. He grabs his bayonet, with which his entire body is littered, which pierced him hundreds of times, and it's hard to imagine how much pain Jack actually experienced. The guard, guided only by his sixth sense, without looking, seeks to attack our hero. The chained dead man Jack is also preparing an attack, only for the bodyguard, and it will obviously not be weak. The bayonet seems to be covered with golden blood and shines, as a gigantic power is hidden in it. Jack is already behind his opponent, and will make her wait a long time, and will not allow her hopeless master to die. Anger overwhelms our guard, and it can be understood. An unexpected attack. He allowed himself to lose vigilance, and, in the end, he failed to protect his master. His eyes are also closed, but he disperses a bunch of flames of energy behind him, as if ignited by the flames of the underworld for the most valiant warriors of Scandinavia. The blade is covered with energy and shines like the northern lights, a majestic phenomenon in nature, and this level of mastery of one's energy is more than enough to cut through everything living and not living. Andrew opened his mouth even wider, as he is only capable of this in such situations. The dead man protected Andrew with himself, thereby allowing himself to be pierced, saved the life of the hero, and apparently this is not the end. Jack's empty eyes shone with red flames. They only showed the desire to kill anyone who gets in the way. The bayonet of a living corpse pierces the back of a blinded warrior, hitting the sore spots of the defender. Madness, passion, and the desire to kill, all this in the eyes of a walking corpse, born to kill. The stake, whether it be lightning, pierces the guard, causing him tremendous damage. Two warriors clashed in a fierce battle. One is dead, but the same warrior, the other is blind and does not see any obstacles in front of him. The guard clenched his teeth hard, believing Jack to be a daredevil, as he was brave enough to attack the son of the head of a powerful clan. Gold teeth on the mask, red pupils, he is like hell with a smile from ear to ear and eyes, whether it be candles in a temple. The force threw the dead man away. He only managed to injure, and is already flying. The explosion was caused by the guard's uncle, who wanted to keep his distance. The hero is in a misunderstanding from the energy of the bodyguard and understands that today is their day, but they can all die at the hands. Anger is pouring right out of Andrew, his clenched teeth confirming everything. The bodyguard is overflowing with energy. Lightning radiates from him, like whips punishing his enemies. He turns towards the entrance to his master's box, realizing that he is in danger and that he must hurry to save him. The defender flies into the box with a cry, worried about his master. Heavily opening his wine-red eyes, the bodyguard tries to see at least something and make sure the son of the head of the clan is safe. In the half-open eyes, as if a flash of thunder flashed, purple lightning rushes towards him, foreshadowing incredible danger. That lightning turned out to be super-fast Alex, who in a matter of seconds has already crept up to the bodyguard and is gathering him to attack with his sharp claws. The serious face of the bodyguard is filled with emotions of anger and the desire to kill all the enemies in front of him. Andrew tries to warn Alex to dodge the enemy's attack. Making a dash, he counterattacks Alex. It is unclear who will come out of this battle, a descendant of vampires, the Demon King, and the only one in the Andrew team who has powers or a bodyguard. The sword pierced the vampire in the chest, knowing what he was capable of and his regeneration. Such an attack hurt no more than a barb. The sword, like lightning, hit the bloodsucker against the wall, but it didn't pierce him, but pushed him away. The bodyguard orders to tell who sent them to kill the son of the head of an important clan. Alex's blood flows like a river, and the blade continues to pass through the vampire's body. Rage and anger filled the strength of our defender. His discipline continues to amaze. He did not run away, did not succumb to temptation, and most importantly, he remained true to his cause. Alex's smile is terrifying. Even pierced by a sword, bleeding, he taunts his opponent. He is like death, fast as lightning, strong as the strongest animal. A real nightmare settled in the bodyguard's heart. This frightening look that devours everyone from the inside. This smile that shines even in the night. Andrew is shocked that Alex was able to regain his power, but more concerned about how he did it. The vampire hung on the sword like a flag, but the battle is not over yet, because for Alex this is a complete trifle. He is amazed. Surprise does not leave his face. He is paralyzed by every movement of Alex. Alex opens his mouth. His eyes are shining. The background is painted in purple hues. Everything suggests that the bodyguard will not be in trouble. The fangs of our vampire have come out. He is ready to suck all the juices out of the vampire in order to restore himself. He sharply bites into the neck, according to all the traditions of vampires, to bite through the most accessible large artery, so that the blood enters the vampire's body faster. Screams and screams filled the room. Here it is the pain of losing her strength, losing her life, with just one bite to the neck. The joy of the bloodsucker is amazing. His bloodthirstiness is boundless, and he himself can give death to each of his enemies. He, pierced by the blade and suspended by it, nothing will stop our vampire. The bodyguard seemed to be withered, his skin wrinkled like a sponge, and his already wrinkled body was covered with wrinkles. Eternal scars on the neck. A hero and a protector who lost blood and one who defended his master with a valuable death. Having replenished his strength, Alex throws out a soulless dummy, just a shell that can only rot. The chilled corpse fell to the ground. The blood continued to flow in a stream. The sight is not a pleasant sight. The enemy is completely defeated. the lifeless head of a fearless warrior fell at the hands of a bloodthirsty vampire. The devil in the flesh, the descendant of vampires, defeated his first enemy in this world. His gloomy aura after withering the bodyguard became more terrifying. Finally, he regained his former strength, terrible as a vampire, strong as a devil, gloomy as night. A spectacular return of Alex's powers. He soars into the sky with his terrifying wings and laughs out loud. The faces of all of him instantly changed. Everyone's eyes were filled with hope. They realized that they would finally be able to regain their strength. Andrew's face is filled with shock. He saw his character at the peak of the forces that he portrayed in his works. Wings like those of the devil are able to block the light of the sun, so an eclipse with one stroke can burn the souls of people. The reincarnation is over. The devil vampire Alex has shown all his old strength. Licking the blood off his hands, he can't help but feel overwhelmed by the strength he's been craving. Mai incites Alex with caustic phrases, but still wants to know how he got his powers back and how to get her back. The she-devil asks Alex question after question when he regained his power, in what way. He didn't reveal anything exactly to the smallest detail. But he didn't lie either, he told everything to the point. Mai was inspired by the fact that, probably, the awakening of her master was the reason for the return of strength, and he was just returning the strength to his old heroes. Her eyes lit up with a desire to regain her strength. She smiled so much, as if all animal instincts had awakened in her. Andrew was shocked, as he was finally able to become not useless. But nothing good would shine for him if he could not help anyone regain their former strength. Mai is so happy that she can get all her powers back, like a puppy, that she has been waiting for her master's return for a long day. Mai is distraught. She seems to be in euphoria. She is overwhelmed with a sense of pleasure. She wants to get her powers that she has lost as soon as possible. She asks to give her the opportunity to take Andrew to his room and serve him in the same way as a recent guest. A heavy voice came out of the beauty's mouth. She asks to leave everything else to her. The dead man decided to visit his vampire friend in order to find out what is the way to get his former powers. Even Alex's dream is completely a tradition. He lives in death even in a dream. The coffin in which he sleeps plunges into the gloomiest atmosphere. As before burial, when nails are driven into the lid of his coffin. Zombies should understand this way of life better than anyone else. But on the contrary, he prefers a soft bed, a pillow airy like a cloud, and a warm blanket. Alex spent a lot of time and effort to buy himself a coffin. Even in another world he remains true to himself and his traditions, which is his principle of life. Dead Jack continues to ask questions, each time trying to unravel the secret of awakening the power. Alex is trying to understand mortal people. What is the feeling of death? But they feel it only in mortal danger, before the same burial, and he feels death, its cold breath every night. The voice from behind puzzled our heroes. Someone entered the conversation at the wrong time. The guest turned out to be the blind Charles, leaning on barrels of high-class wine that only the best connoisseur can drink. The blame for such a strong enemy lies on the shoulders of the blind man, as he did not plan for the guest guard to be so strong. Alex continues to carry on the conversation, even when he is so suddenly invaded. Jack continues to stand with his arms crossed. He probably has nothing to say and he continues to stand silently. A blind man is not only a lover of smoking and exploring the area, but also does not disdain fruits, which even a blind man can skillfully peel. Alex claims that only this world could truly inspire them, give them that sweetness of development, and not full power just from getting into this world. Today's success has given gifts, this world has slightly opened up for them, and the blind man needs to go continue interrogating the dear guest in order to get some more important information. Alex offers the master to conduct the interrogation himself, even if he feels a little not useless. The vampire's statement shocked everyone. Even the blind man could not have expected such an offer. Jack is also at a loss as to how their useless master can conduct an important interrogation for all of them. Charles decides to take over everything, as he is completely sure that their master can only spoil everything. Alex demands to speed up this process, otherwise they will have to weed out Andrew at the first opportunity, since he will only be a burden for them, which they will despise until the end of time. The blind man revealed the secret of the return of Alex's powers. It lies in Andrew's trust in everyone, and the first person he could trust was Alex. Thus he received his power. Jack didn't make a sound for a long time, only silently. listening to all the information in order to get a lot of the most useful things for his ears. Charles points out that Alex went on the rampage, thus putting everyone at risk. Silence is sown in the wine lover's room, and the blind man leaves the room with all his talk. The dialogue between Jack and Alex was not so efficient. They just covered Andrew with dirt, but promised not to leave him. The vampire also realized the mystery in awakening his powers and took a deep breath. The reason for the awakening of forces turned out to be the very trust. He said that he would not leave him, but in return received a precious recognition. They were loyal to their master before, but only after his awakening did a certain contract begin to operate, and thus you need to get his recognition in order to get your powers. Andrew washes in the bath after a hard day, and he could not even think that they would kill a person, even without any regret, not even some kind of burden on his soul. Probably, the blind man came to notify about the interrogation and asks Mr. Andrew to be present, but he ordered to go without him and report everything in the future. Charles makes a promise that everything will be reported exactly to the smallest detail. Ed claims that the guy will open up with a snap of a finger, and the interrogation will not be long. In this world there is no morality, mercy, and any other branches of conscience. All you have to do is try to survive or hold on to your place under the sun. For Andrew, the main thing is that his subjects are devoted to him, and make him obey with all their hearts. Andrew soaks a washcloth in warm water and is about to apply it to his face. Covering his face with a rag, he showed his bare chest, which even the most ardent athlete could envy. Andrew fell asleep for 3 hours and probably missed the most important thing. The worst nightmare is when, after a long sleep, a dead man turns up behind you and calls you master with his cold breath and quiet voice. Andrew instantly jumped away from Jack in fear, who apparently has been waiting for a long time for him to finally wake up. A taciturn, even once dead friend stands in front of his master after waiting for him in the bathroom for a long time. Andrew breathed a sigh of relief as his bathtub was not his most bloodthirsty enemy, but his ally. Andrew inquired about the end of the interrogation, realizing that he could have had a stroke from fear. Jack is really not very talkative, as if cockroaches are running around in his head, and he himself does not understand what he wants in the same bath with the master. An awkward silence overtakes them over and over again, and they cannot squeeze out a word from themselves. Andrew can only sigh after such suddenness, because after a long sleep such a thing is by no means expected. He puts his hand on Jack's cold shoulder and gives freedom to talk about everything that lies on his soul, even if he is so useless. Andrew in such situations can only listen, and no help can be expected from him. Jack also extended his hand, probably also wants to lean, thereby showing his trust. Both put their hands on each other's shoulders, finally making some sort of contact. Jack, at night, looking, decided to be really sincere and asks that Andrew not follow them next time. Andrew seemed strange behavior Jack, but he still showed confidence in his direction. Andrew tries to avoid such frank conversations by making excuses. He left with a bath, leaving Jack all alone, Jack himself in such an uncomfortable position. The zombie froze out of the blue, his hand hung in the same position, and his face became empty. His eyes turned into moon craters. He drooped so much that he couldn't even move. All he could do was stand and stare at a hole in the floor. His legs are heavy holding the dead carcass. He urgently needs to sit down, otherwise he will die of shame. It was as if he had been lowered to the very bottom of the deepest sea, and on him, that depth, that emptiness, presses after such revelations. Suddenly, the red eyes of the dead man shone, the pupils narrowed, and the retina, which had already been burned under the scorching sun, became even darker. The former strength has awakened in Jack's body, yet the master's trust really solves the problem and even gives the former opportunities. Wonderful weather, which seems to be always perfect in this world. The blind man and Andrew are discussing something over and over again, and this something is probably a new task and is now being discussed at an outdoor dining table. The master asks to get down to business, to tell about everything that the blind man found out during the interrogation and the visit of the head of the city guard. Charles Ray continues to tell the plan, drawing something like a map with noodles. The city in which they are located has a large territory and belongs to the county of a certain kingdom, which is almost considered a province. The county was on the border of the very kingdom where the warriors of the kingdom fought against the robbers 100 years ago. Views of the gloomy mountains and the ash that rises above them, creating a cloud, gray as a thundercloud, Wars between the kingdom and the robbers numbering more than 10,000 people have not been for 100 years. War is a horror, a nightmare. Often a war is a business on lives, blood and victims. Countries are eager to get profit, new territories, spilling rivers of blood and enemies and allies, leaving all the horror of war on the shoulders of innocent warriors who want to protect their own families. The blind man continues to tell interesting stories about the place where they ended up, illustrating everything with his food. The whole world is under the control of the three kingdoms. They all bare their teeth at each other. Andrew is surprised that there are only 4 countries in this world, which is rather strange. In this world there is magic, chi and monks. Besides, in this world there is a 9-point system of forces, where 9 points are the worst, and conversely, including the guard whom they defeated yesterday is not even included in the 9. Some incredible yummy, a green leaf in a shiny liquid. Such food can be savored and enjoyed forever. Andrew delights in food, but is further and further shocked by the fact that there are so few countries in this world that rule the whole world. The blind man's goal is to find a way back, which is against Andrew's wishes. Once upon a time, a writer tries to fish out what Charles plans to do and does want to analyze the next action plan to the smallest detail. A small smile slips on the face of the blind man. Apparently he is glad that his master has finally become more decisive. Charles stirs something that looks like porridge that glistens like gold. The first step is to build up their forces in the city, which will be their beginning. Charles quickly told the whole plan and asks to correct it if there is something not to Mr. Andrew's liking. Andrew praises Charles for his work and receives flattery in return, as if his interlocutor wants to cuddle with him. He noticed this flattery and excessive praise, which put him in an awkward position. The blind man put his hand to his chest, showing respect, with some self-interest, as he understands that the trust of the master will restore his strength. Andrew asks that he sometimes turn to him for help and not be silent, even if he is useless. Again, Charles's flattery infuriates our hero and puts a lot of pressure on him. He flatters again, wants to praise the hero again and again. With all this, his behavior is very strange. They don't have a dialogue, as Charles constantly elevates Andrew to the skies in order to gain his strength, and Andrew is annoyed by this situation. Charles's hand does not leave his chest, and he continues to claim that his master does not trust him. Constantly calling yourself a subordinate, and your interlocutor master, trust will be quite difficult to gain. But no matter how anyone says, for sure, the power of the blind man has already awakened, since the leaf in the saucer moved for no reason, and this suggests that telekinesis is his ability. Andrew nevertheless showed confidence in the blind man, and the leaf is already soaring into the air. The leaf instantly moved to another bowl, leaving behind mirages. Charles noticed that his strength was finally awakened. Excessive flattery was superfluous, but helped to gain the trust of his master. He grabbed his leaf, which, suddenly, flew from one bowl to another, which is rather strange for a normal wind. Charles finishes the leaf and thanks Andrew for his trust, but he is led on about, because he does not know that his trust directly affects the awakening of the forces of his subordinates. Andrew was frightened by the fact that the same leaf moved from one place to another without a known force, and whether he should be more careful with the blind man. He decides to finish the meal, and the blind man himself shines like a moonflower that has just blossomed under the pale light of the moon, under the auspices of Andrew. After dinner, the main character steps on stone slabs, heading to his chambers. Off to the side, he hears a rumble in the doorway. Surely someone is hard at work. Without showing any decency, without even knocking on the door, Andrew peeps into the room where the work is going on. Without asking, he enters Ed's room and does not even warn him about it. Ed, on the other hand, makes a physical map of their city and makes it very competently, like the best navigator, as if he personally visited every corner of the city. Andrew came up from behind and asked what our dwarf was doing. So impudent of him. Ed was greatly surprised by his master's visit, like a child playing with a map. He is busy sketching a new topographic map, which the blind Charles asked for convenience, and it is also rather frightening how the blind man succeeds everywhere. Andrew kindly looks at the gnome's not hefty work, like a loving father looks at his child. Andrew grabbed a hammer to hand it to Ed, in order to somehow help. With a kind grin, he gives the hammer into the hands of his subordinate, who does not flatter him and does not overestimate him to the skies, but only does his job properly. Ed waits for the hammer, and reaches out his hand for it to finish his job. He continues to complete the layout of the city and knocks on the dunes of some desert. Andrew puts his hand on the gnome's shoulder, as he did with Jack. Ed is shocked by this. He was very frightened by the surprise with which his shoulder was grabbed. The main character, silently, left Ed to continue working on the layout. The gnome trembled with embarrassment. Something overwhelmed him, or else his former strength awakened, and only he, without any self-interest, relates to his master. Suddenly, Ed coughed, probably from surprise or illness. After touching their master, everyone seems to lose all their strength and begin to fall down. The legs do not even hold after such frankness, as if for a second the heart was taken out of the chest. He falls, and it is unlikely that anyone will help him get out of such a state that plunged him into this state. Suddenly, he stops his fall with only one finger, which proves his dexterity. His eyes filled with happiness, he regained his strength and became agile as a monkey, fast as a panther and strong as an elk. A mouth full of sharp teeth, but there is nothing terrible in his smile, and even a lot of kindness, a really kind and, when necessary, a bloodthirsty, agile dwarf. Andrew finally noticed that everyone around him was behaving strangely. Only Ed remained normal, and only he did not seek to extract strength from Mr. Andrew. He is still confident that he will be able to get along with everyone and make friends. Finally, he came to his chambers, slowly gets to the door, and is about to enter. Andrew heard Ed's laughter in the distance, and was distracted by it. Perhaps it was strange on the part of the dwarf. Andrew's hopelessness is known in his every step. It is literally impossible to cross the threshold without stumbling. He is already flying towards the floor. The fall will obviously be painful. Andrew falls on May's vast chest. He was very shaken by such an airbag. No matter where he falls, it will always be his mainstay. Mai immediately reacted to his fall with concern for him, hoping that he was doing well. The master's face is fully protected. Nothing can protect better than a girl's breasts. Incredible. He was surprised at what she was doing here, why she had come here, and why she was still here. She, sweetly embarrassed, said that she had brought his clothes, like a real mother takes care of her son. May has made several sets of clothes for her master over the course of 6 months, indicating that she is an angel in the body of a devil. She definitely tried for a very long time on his costume, since it fit him perfectly in size and in terms of style. It also suits him. Now he befits the Lord of Demon Kings. He is very glad that at least someone took care of him, since he has been living without parents for a long time and no one sewed clothes for him just as long ago. Their brushes intertwined, as in the most romantic poem. The background became warm, and their hearts fluttered. She firmly grabbed her hand with her tender hands and asked to play the role of the master's mother, which was very nice of her. Andrew, as a cute teenager who has never spoken to a woman, can only say out loud only her name. Mai's fantasy sparkled with new colors. Her gray world turned into the brightest colors. Or she just pretends, and such feelings are not alien to her. Andrew talks about his integrity, and is already inflating himself to the skies. The blind man abruptly bursts into the room and wants to announce something, because there is nothing more for him to do here. The teapot flew screaming at Charles, as his impudence knew no bounds, because they had such a moment, and he even enters without knocking, without ceremony. Demon kings, but ordinary people behave. They have human emotions, experiences and feelings. This is very different from the description of devils. Andrew is completely indifferent to how Charles entered and is eager to hear from him. Charles cleared his throat and started talking about the news that had happened since lunch. He said that something happened at the entrance of the inn. Perhaps he just wanted to get her out of here more gently. Jack, May and Andrew went to the head of the city guard. The chief sits in the place of the master in the crowd of bodyguards and briefly announces all his intentions and that a battle is planned. All the rest, silently, listen to orders. Apparently, they do not have a chance to refuse this work. The boss is a rather stately man, and he will not tolerate refusal, in any form. Mai mentions a lumberjack who supposedly ran away with the merchants, and all the provisions. Also, Alex, who fell ill with tuberculosis and can infect all the soldiers in the barracks. Thereby they will suffer much more losses. The chief was not pleased with the news, but determination was visible in his eyes, and the order was very important to him. He ordered to forget about them, and the rest to lead into battle, and immediately. Jack and Andrew followed the chief and all his guards with their eyes, without saying a word. Everyone must be outside the city by noon tomorrow and stand at the barracks. Such an order cannot be violated in any way. Silence, apparently, is the main passion of our heroes, and it enslaves their minds, thereby preventing them from connecting even 2 words. Mai wished her boss good luck and waved her hand in confidence. The chief and his guards have almost left the inn, and their heels are sparkling. Andrew understands that this time they really have a lot of problems, and there is no getting away from it. By the color of the robe, one can understand that the blind man Charles appeared to them, and he points to 2 paths and it is not clear which ones. He did not come alone, but even took the dwarf Ed with him, offering to collect things and move out of the city. Andrew orders to advance to the barracks by tomorrow, and also as decisively as a real general. May cast her glance at her master. Her eyes shone with the brilliance of thousands of sapphires. Zombie Jack also drilled a hole in the master with his gaze and his dark eyes. The blind man cannot even cast a glance. But he obviously heard everything, so everyone will be defending the posts by noon at the barracks. Andrew sits down in his seat and says that they spent too much time at the inn, so there is absolutely no way to retreat. Revolting over such a trifle would be foolish and unrealistic. Charles again praises Andrew, calling him farsighted, although he may be. He asks the nomad for help, to which he, without hesitation, agrees. Mai does not understand why she cannot be with them, because she can serve them and help in every possible way. The blind man answers her with excessive impudence, pointing out that she could only be a fallen woman for the warriors of the kingdom there. She didn't like such arrogance, because she seemed to have been dipped into the mud, but the blind man explained the reason for his rudeness by saying that they were his subjects, and should remove obstacles from his path, and not create new ones. Everything is already ready to advance, it remains only to wait for tomorrow. Andrew balled his fingers into a fist and pressed it to his face, giving him some support. A day later, everyone is already in the barracks, which are showered with golden sunlight. Mr. Andrew would never have thought that he would be in another world where he would have to fight for the kingdom. Zombie Jack realized that they were in big trouble and decided to tell Andrew everything. The same was frightened by the news from the dead man, and he abruptly turns to him in order to interrogate him. By order, they were only to be responsible for food and supplies, and the army was to move in front, but no trace of the past army was seen. Nothing is known about the war, and they are thrown around in the middle of the battle, as if they were some kind of bait. Pretty serious food for Andrew's mind. Maybe in truth all this betrayal on the part of the boss. Ed instantly arrived in one of the chambers. Apparently he has something to report. He definitely has something to show, and this is something very bad for everyone. The dwarf had just come from the food wagons, and he found something, carried it in his hand. They were also deprived of provisions, a real setup. They have neither provisions, nor an army, nor information. They are all alone, like cheese in a mousetrap. A couple of days have passed and no news, only them and the tops of the mountains, watered by sunlight. The barracks are surrounded by majestic mountains, which gives them a convenient geographical position for battle. Jack is sure that on this day something should happen, and this something can have a bad effect on everyone. The dwarf prepares dinner, and Jack mentions the geographical location of the barracks. The position is very convenient for protection, since you can increase its effectiveness by narrowing it, since the barracks are surrounded by mountains on both sides, as well as a source of fresh water. Jack is blatantly flattering our protagonist again, and he won't like it. Andrew is no longer in the spirit of Jack's impudence, as if he is blind and does not see how everyone wants to praise him, but does not understand for what purpose. He thinks that they are still connected by the fact that they protected him from all bad weather for a long time, and there is something in this. Jack, just like that, without praising his master, will not live in peace. He also notes well that all these advantages are impossible due to the fact that they do not have a main army, but only a set of peasants in the form of cavalry. Having struck from different sides, the enemy cavalry will easily knock down the entire cavalry of the allies, since they have no discipline. One will fall, all will fall. The entire camp will collapse from the inside only from the fear of the peasants, and their combat training is nowhere lower. Ed brought tender, fragrant and hot soup, a dream, not a gnome. Apparently everything came together, and they are going to be used as baits so that the mouse gets into the mousetrap. They can't report this to anyone, they need to protect themselves, and if conditions permit, take advantage of the battle. Lonely barracks, everyone in them is in great danger. The night has come, it's time to attack a gang of hungry peasants and kill everyone without exception. The guard on duty checks the area, although he himself is one step away from sleep. The enemy appeared, some kind of robber, half naked with daggers in his hands and with a horned mask. The cavalryman, who does not expect anything, will not have time to understand that he was attacked. The barbarian grabbed the victim's mouth so that she would die silently, and put the blade to the neck in order to deal with him quickly. The throat is cut, the arterial blood gushing like a fountain. He will no longer see the sunlight and feel the fresh forest breeze. The assassins cunningly break into the chambers of the peasants, and want to kill them while they sleep in order to suffer less losses. The corpse of a peasant gradually cools on the cold ground, and his blood stains all the earth around him. The blood of the allies splatters on the chambers. Something must be done, otherwise everyone will die to the last victim. The barbarian is already peering at new prey and wants to attack those who are there. Yet Jack turned out to be right, and indeed the enemies arrived today, and they attacked them. Jack's hand is already heading towards the barbarian. He will not survive, since Jack, after awakening his powers, has become very strong. The hand squeezes his neck tighter and tighter. He is already as dead as Jack. It is more terrible than death to see a dead man who kills you before death. Jack grabs his enemy in a stranglehold, and sends him to the world of the dead to lay his heart on the scales. The rest of the barbarians hear the screams of their ally, and they will have to join him to help. But they do not have time. A blade rushes before their eyes and soon they will be without heads. Agile dwarf Ed shows off his acquired strength and speed. A dead man steps onto the battlefield. You have to put a couple of heads under the guillotine blade. Jack pulls one barbarian corpse out of his chamber like a trophy. Andrew just leaves the chambers, realizing that everything went exactly as they thought. Jack, like an executioner, ruthlessly orders to chop off their heads, not to give them a chance to live. The fiery arrow shoots up and prepares to hit its enemy. An arrow, like a comet, descends and can take many lives or give one wish. Such an analogy, all or nothing. The horses knock their hooves on the stone ground and rush towards the camp. The robbers are already on their heels and are preparing a large-scale attack on the entire camp. The barracks are already nearby and the barbarians at the entrance will probably not be very good for everyone after such an attack. Andrew, Jack and Ed hid behind the chambers, preparing an attack for the remaining cavalry. The chief's plan has been clarified. They are bait and reinforcements should be coming soon. Andrew is determined, because he understands that there is a reward and military merit for the heads of barbarians, and he wants to put more heads of barbarians in the bag. The dwarf has already completely recognized his master, since his heart is truly sinister. The barbarian noticed our heroes, and he instantly decides to attack them. The barbarian on horseback rides with all his speed, and menacingly prepared his massive mace for an attack. Jack stood before Andrew and prepared a defense for him, and would never allow his master to be hurt. Ed is also preparing to attack, as the more they kill today, the more rewards they will receive. The agile dwarf quickly found himself in the enemy's weak zone, and is ready to attack him at the same second. The barbarian did not expect such speed and can only watch how he will be cut into small pieces. Before his eyes, you can see the radiance of Ed's attack. He does not even have time to get away from the sudden attack of the dwarf. There was a deep cut on the neck, which would not make it possible to survive. Sometimes a sweet and kind, and sometimes a dwarf, terrifying and frightening to a stop of the heart. Eyes like lunar craters, from which the whole soul came out and only emptiness remained. The barbarian laid his head on the body of a brave horse and died, leaving nothing of himself. The stallion screamed at the top of his voice in anger, and clearly wants to avenge his master. The horse headed towards Jack to raise him to the ground. The eyes of the dead man lit up with a red flame. In them you can see the reflection of death in a black hood. His hands were covered in blood-red magic, as if Jack manipulated the blood. A fist is directed towards the horse, which Jack controls like an unmanned device. These fists must be very itchy when they want to beat someone to a pulp. The speed of such an attack can equal the speed of lightning, and this makes it much more dangerous. The horse's face has lost its original shape, its teeth have fallen out of its gums, and there is nothing left for it to lie down on the ground. The stallion fell on his own and dropped his master. His goal was never realized. Jack grabbed the robber by the neck to finish him off and leave him no chance to stand up. He laid the barbarian on the ground, and Andrew prepared his blade like an executioner. Jack calls on his master to cut off the head of an inhuman barbarian. Andrew swings his blade and prepares a strong cutting attack. He finished off his enemy, although he was immobilized. In the war there must be pride and mercy, either you or you. The blade drips scarlet blood that flowed in the veins of an undeveloped rogue. Andrew wipes the blood from his face like a real killer. So to say, our main character has grown up and has not lost the fear of blood, the fear of murder, and now someone else's life is worth gold and military merit for him.